How's it going, everybody? My name is Steve Anderson. I honestly and truly can't believe that I'm having to talk to you about this, but this is something that needs to be said. Now, let me just preface this by saying that I have been a lifelong fan of professional wrestling. It happened when my grandfather told me about my great uncle Lewis, who traveled the circuits in Texas back in the 40s and 50s, if I'm not mistaken, under the name Texas Red. I was like 5 when he told me this story. And that spawned part of my love of professional wrestling. Professional wrestling also became a solace for me when I was 9 years old, the time that I was 12. You see, my mom married a man who turned out to be something other than advertised. For 3 years, I was told that I was not good enough to be a guy. I was not good enough to wear the name Steve. I was called Stephanie for 3 years. I was only allowed to watch 4 different types of programming on television. ESPN, Sports Center, that kind of stuff. Anything professional sports, professional wrestling, and action movies. That was it. This was his attempt to man me up and make me tougher. And during those times, I grew a strong affection for a wrestler named Sting. Sting was always to me this bleach blonde, rat tail wearing guy that always seemed to be against the odds. He always seemed to overcome them. Even in loss, he always stood back up and was proud and shook the fans' hands and walked down the aisle. And he loves the fans. Well, at least he betrays to love the fans. I don't really know if he does or not. I don't know Sting. But if you watch the TNA match where it gets called very quickly, he's upset too, just as the fans are, that the main event only lasted a minute and a half. Because it seems like he cares about the business and cares about the fans. And it had been one of my dreams to always see Sting live in person. But that was never an opportunity for me. I also grew up watching, Shawn Michaels and Demolition. And I remember reading about Jerry the King Lawler and Jeff Jarrett every week in PWI. So, on March 16th, earlier this year, this was supposed to be one of the greatest moments in my professional wrestling watching history. For the man himself, Sting, was going to be in Des Moines. I was elated because I, being an adult, could afford to buy a ticket to go see this person who got me through 3 years of hell. This man who I've watched his entire career, this man that really means something to me and made an impact and spoke to me, was going to be in Des Moines. And all I wanted was a chance to shake his hand and tell him thank you for everything that he did. In fact, I wrote a page in my book dedicated to him. Not because I know this guy, because I don't. I don't know what he's really like off camera. But his on-camera persona touched a 9-year-old boy and gave him the strength to fight. To fight a man who was much bigger, much stronger, and didn't really understand what kind of damage he was doing. And so I wanted to tell Sting thank you. Even if it was just handing him the page out of my book. I just wanted that opportunity. And so it finally happened. The moment that I'd waited 26 years for. Sting came out and saved Randy Orton. And I got to see him in the flesh from 15 rows away. There was a dark match after Raw got taped. This was a Raw taping. And after Raw was taped, there was a dark match. As soon as that dark match was announced, I grabbed everything I had and I booked out of the arena because I knew that he'd be leaving quick, and I wanted to just have the chance to hand him my quote-unquote letter or whatever. I never saw him. I never got that opportunity. And I knew it was a long shot. Something more miraculous and scary happened, though. You see, I was standing outside of the Wells Fargo Arena with my letter in hand, my book bag on the back, and I actually had other merchandise that, if I ran into other people, would be kind of cool to have signed. And understand, I'm a lifelong fan, so there's a lot of things that I had. And I did run into the Big Show, who, by the way, was very polite. You could tell that he was having a bad day, but he stood there, he took pictures with fans, he shook little kids' hands. He didn't say a word, but he was very polite to people. And I respect that. So thank you, Big Show, for that. I remember I was standing by the guardrail right behind the TV trucks, the red truck, the blue truck, and then the production truck. I'm guessing it was the production truck. And there was all the coaches lined up on the other side of me along the street. This becomes relevant later. And I was standing there, the air was getting kind of chill, and starting to feel that dread sinking on me that I was not going to get this chance to tell Sting thank you for potentially saving my life without ever meeting me. I was kind of wallowing in my self-worry, self-sadness, when a voice behind me broke my thought. I turned around and I saw this man, a little shorter than me, African American, wearing this purple John Cena shirt. And he had khaki pants on. He was mad. I don't think mad, but he was cursing. So I turned to him and I said, "Are you okay?" And as soon as he opened his mouth, I recognized this gentleman may have some special needs. My son, who is 8, is autistic. And so I became a little more sensitive to that, I guess. So I said, "Are you okay?" And he just conveyed that he was angry and scared. I asked him what had happened, and he said he had gotten separated from his group, and he was supposed to be meeting his supervisor, and he didn't really know how to find her. He didn't have a cell phone. I said, I have a cell phone here. You can use it. And so I handed him my cell phone. I didn't know what level he was at or what his capabilities were, so I tried to give independence when I can. He took my phone. He couldn't dial the numbers. Started cursing their existence and saying how small they were. And, all right. Let me take the phone back and I'll dial for you. And so I did. A few seconds later, he hangs up the phone and he's mad because he didn't get a hold of his supervisor. Just got her voicemail. Said, "You know what? We'll call again in a few minutes. It's not going to be a big deal. It'll be fine." I looked at my phone at this particular time, and I noticed that it was almost out of battery. So to conserve battery for our phone call later, I put it in my pocket. Otherwise, what I'm about to tell you, I would have far greater impact. You ever had those moments where you're talking to someone but you feel rather than hear someone approach you? You see, I engaged this man in a conversation, and we started talking about things, and I asked him how the show was, and blah, blah, blah. And the whole time there was a security guy that kept walking back and forth. He was very well dressed and, very buff, a little shorter than me, maybe about my same height, about 5'8", 5'9", somewhere in there. And you could tell he had an air of authority about him. He's used to having people listen. Well, I saw him walk by at one point in time, and I was still talking to Curtis, is his name, the young man that I was engaging in conversation, when I felt the air change around us. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure that nobody could deny who he was. Now, I'm not out to slander anybody. I'm not out to hurt anybody. I'm not out to get people fired or anything like that. My main purpose, my only purpose in this, is to make sure that Curtis gets what he deserves. So I'm not going to reveal the name of this person. But out of the corner of my eye, I looked over, and Mr. Megastar, as I will call him from now on, was approaching us. All of a sudden I felt excited. I was like, whoa. I made a mistake. My mistake isn't that I alerted Curtis to Mr. Megastar, or that I called out to Mr. Megastar. My mistake was not being able to control my emotions. For you see that while I'm 37, this 9-year-old boy who really wanted to tell his hero thank you took over. And so I looked at him, and no, it's not Sting. Please don't take that. It was not Sting. For I looked at Mr. Megastar and I said, Mr. Megastar, can I ask you a favor? And he started walking towards us, and then like a ding-dong, I said, I have a letter for Sting. Could you deliver it for me? And immediately dropped my head because that was the stupidest, most awful thing I could have ever said. So in this moment, I want to say to Mr. Megastar, I am really sorry for that. Ironically, I had something in my bag that I wanted you to sign. But again, I was caught up in my emotions. And I am truly sorry for hurting your feelings, or upsetting you, or whatever happened. Really and truly, I'm sorry. Mr. Megastar at that point in time decided to take a turn towards the road. He made this weird motion like this that could have been determined as different things. I took it as, you blew your chance, I'm walking away from you now. Curtis did not. Curtis took it as more of a follow me, and so he bounced around the barricade before I even knew what happened. Now Mr. Megastar goes to the end of his coach. He has a bodyguard next to him. Curtis is on the street, or on the sidewalk. So Mr. Megastar is in the street, bodyguard in between the coach and the truck that was right there in front of him. Curtis is on the street. They engage in some kind of verbal altercation. In his defense, Mr. Megastar may not have recognized right away that Curtis is a special needs person. But you have a bodyguard between you and him. And Mr. Megastar did not do anything physically. And what he said to Curtis, I cannot repeat, because it is absolutely and totally heinous. And I want to believe I really want to believe that Mr. Megastar was just having a bad day, and then being confronted in this way by Curtis, which was not right. I'm not condoning that. But I want to believe that this was an isolated incident. So on behalf of Curtis, who I don't have contact with on a regular basis and cannot bring him into this video, Mr. Megastar, I want to say I'm sorry on his behalf as well. Curtis was caught up in the moment. I know this. But I also know what you said. And you know what you said. And you know, I would hope that you would know that whether he was special needs or not should be completely irrelevant. This bothered me, this altercation. At the time, my first concern was, I don't want to get Curtis arrested. I don't want to be arrested. Let's defuse the situation as fast as possible. So I ran across the barricade, and as I got to Curtis is when I heard the remark that got said to Curtis from Mr. Megastar that stopped me in my tracks and said, whoa, 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 hang on, what? No, it was nothing slanderous towards special needs people or anything like that. But it should never have been said. And it's nothing like just F you. No, it was much worse than that. I grab Curtis and I bring him back across the barricade. At which point in time the security guard makes sure that Mr. Megastar gets onto his bus and then comes over and talks to us. Now I will admit that the security guard was chill. All things considered, you know, him not knowing the situation, him not knowing everyone involved and what could have potentially happened. And he defended his boy, I guess like any good bodyguard should have. So I applaud him for not getting overly worked up, not calling the cops, you know, and then after talking to Curtis for a few seconds, kind of realized what happened and who Curtis was. I apologized to the security guard. I said, I'm really sorry. The security guard says, hey, it's okay, just can you guys move along? So I started walking Curtis back. I then take up my phone and I call the phone number that he had called, and I get in touch with Curtis's supervisor, who then agreed to meet us. So we're walking up that way, and I said, what did you say to Mr. Megastar that got him so riled up? Like, what happened? And the only thing he would say to me is, I don't understand why everyone hates him. It's just a show. It's just a show. I was amazed at his confidence, and I was amazed at his courage, because what had just happened was an altercation. He had just gone toe-to-toe with one of the legends in professional and sports entertainment, and he wasn't shaken by it. He also had something so audaciously awful said to him, and he brushed it off. But that's the difference between Curtis and me. Is Curtis may not have understood the gravity of what had been said. He may not have understood that this was not a time for characters. I fully understood that. And as I drove the 2.5 hours home, it ate at me. And it ate at me. And it ate at me. I called the supervisor the next day and I said, you know, this is what I witnessed, and I told her everything that happened, and I said that I would like to stand up for Curtis. I would like to be his advocate. I'd like to be his champion. I want to get him what he deserves. And what does he deserve? Well, in my letter that I wrote to WWE, I stated that while I understood the events that I laid out could be conceived as far-fetched, my asking price should tell them that what I was telling them was completely true, because I did not want autographs. I did not want tickets. I did not want merchandise, nor was I threatening to sue them for millions and millions of dollars. No, all I wanted for Curtis was an apology. And not some form letter written by some goon who sits, in the closet of WWE somewhere and just types up these things. No, I wanted a full-fledged apology from Mr. Megastar, however he deemed fit. That's what I wanted. I emailed that letter. I never got a response. The irony here is that this was 2 weeks before WrestleMania. The week before WrestleMania, it was announced that WWE was being given an award from the LA chapter Special Olympics for everything that they did. Now, I admit WWE does a lot for the special needs. They do a lot for Make-A-Wish. They do a lot for a lot of people. But the timing of this made me choke a little bit. I didn't understand how fully angry I was about this until I started seeing Mr. Megastar's merchandise in Walmart and wherever else, and it made me angry and sick. So I called, and I got no one. I got a voicemail. A week before WrestleMania, understandable. I called again on Friday, and again I just got a voicemail. WrestleMania happened. Monday night happened. Tuesday I called. It was 2:10 in the afternoon. The gentleman I spoke to in the PR department did not give me his name and would not give me his name. My exact words, I had planned this talk out in my head because I didn't want to make any mistakes. After telling him everything that I had to tell him about what had happened, the PR department of WWE then told me I was a liar and that I had inaccurately given the account of what had happened that night. I asked him, how would you even know that? He said he was on the bus of Mr. Megastar. My reply was, then you should have known that everything I told you was true. I was once again called a liar. And that this issue would be handled internally. Thank you for my time. I said, no, I am advocating for this young man. He says, oh, you're advocating for him now. What gives you the right? I said, well, I have permission from his supervisor, his caseworker. He says, well, you can call back in a week and I'll decide if I can tell you anything. I have never heard from WWE again. I then took it upon myself to send 3 certified letters after waiting 3 weeks to hear from people. I sent a certified letter to the PR department of WWE. I sent a letter to the office of Mr. Megastar. And I also sent a letter to the office of Vincent Kennedy McMahon. That was back in May. To this date, I still have yet to get any kind of follow-up response from WWE. Now, I understand that they probably get thousands of complaints and reportings of this and that, and you don't really know what to believe and what not to believe. I get it. Really, because I'm in the restaurant business. I have people call me every day. Hey man, my takeout order was messed up, blah blah blah, I want this, I understand that. I really get it. But I also understand that there is a way in which you talk to people that furthers your business. The way this person in the PR department handled this dropped the ball entirely. You should never call a paying customer a liar. And that's the part that infuriates me more than anything, is that Curtis is probably on a fixed income. Probably. I don't know. I don't press. He spent his money to come see you guys perform. His money. That is limited. And he chose to spend it to come see you guys. I overpaid on my ticket so that I could come see my hero. And I'm not saying that everyone in WWE is this way. Please do not misunderstand that. I have met Kofi Kingston, who I think is one of the most humble and amazing people I have ever met. In fact, let me see how much time I have here. I'm going to tell you a story real fast. Oh, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. I'm going to tell you a story real quick. I was serving tables in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, when a couple came in with their big family, and then this young woman who was obviously from Africa. I say that because she was very dark complected and had authentic African garb on. She kind of stuck out. So I struck up a conversation with her. I was like, hey, how you doing? You know, obviously not from around here. She giggled, I giggled, and she goes, no, I'm from Ghana. I said, really? You're from Ghana? She said, yes. I said, you know, you're the second Ghanaian I've ever met in my entire life. She said, really? I said, yes. The first one I've ever met was Kofi Kingston. I will never forget her face. Her eyes lit up. She goes, you met Kofi? I said, yeah, I've met Kofi. I didn't know that you were a big wrestling fan. She goes, oh, I'm not. But I'm from Ghana. We're very poor. Kofi is inspiration and hope to us. And as she told me about what Kofi Kingston means to her, not even being a wrestling fan, I felt myself tear up. Because I, being an abused child who latched on to wrestling, I know what that feels like, to have your hope being taken away from you. And here comes someone out of nowhere that inspires you. So Kofi, if you ever get down on the road or whatever, just remember the entire country of Ghana loves you. Even the people who have no idea what WWE does. I get it. And there are superstars who do get it. I've met Mick Foley twice. This guy, he's very humble. And I love hearing his stories and love talking to him. So not everyone's this way. And I don't even think that Mr. Megastar is this way. I think he was just having a bad day and I hurt his feelings. And then Curtis kind of made it worse. But I don't care how bad of a day you're having. I don't care if someone had just told you your puppy is the ugliest puppy in the entire world. You do not say things to people, special needs or not. You just don't do it. And then when someone calls you on it, you don't call them a liar. Now I understand that my $10 a month won't hurt you. But I have given you plenty of time to make this right. And nothing has happened. Nothing. So, until Curtis gets his apology, notice there's an open end here. When Curtis gets his apology, I will give you my money again. Until that time, I am canceling my WWE network. Anyone who watches this, who is touched by this, I'm not saying everybody will be, but if you are touched by this, and if you think this is wrong, that the WWE would not respond, you wouldn't even respond to us. Certified letters and all, got nothing. So if you are touched by this, and you feel this is wrong, I ask of you, please, I implore you, please, follow with me, cancel your WWE network until Curtis gets an apology. Because they may not, obviously they don't listen to letters. Obviously they don't listen to people calling and talking to them. Obviously the PR department doesn't care. Obviously people have forgotten who pays who. You know, without us, the fans giving you our money for tickets, for merchandise, for all this other stuff that we collect, I collect things from you guys. Without us doing that, you're just beautiful people walking around in spandex. That's it. That's all you are. So I'm taking back my $10 a month. I pray that people who read this or who watch this and see this and are touched by it and are moved by it will do the same thing, because hopefully you'll get the message. Hopefully the loss of money will finally make an impact. Because Mr. Megastar, I got news for you. I have followed you since the first day I heard about you in 1992. I remember watching your first televised match that I ever saw was with my buddy David. I remember turning to him and saying, this guy is going to be something big. And he's going, oh, this guy's going to be a bum. You turn into a legend. And it breaks my heart to know that I bought pay-per-views just for you. I bought figures of yours. I bought DVDs just because there was a match of yours on it that I wanted to see. There were things about you that I gave my money for. I was really tempted to ask Mick Foley when I saw him, but I didn't want to bring him into it. Just like I wouldn't bring Jeff Jarrett into it, or Jerry the King Lawler, or anybody else that I had a chance to shake hands with and say, hey, by the way, this is my encounter with Mr. Megastar, or what's your opinion? And it seems stupid that I'm sharing this with the entire world now. And honestly, I wouldn't have, except for one small problem. I promised Curtis an apology. I promised Curtis through his supervisor that I would get him an apology, that he was owed one, that he deserves one. Because I don't care. I understand your point of view. You felt like you were being attacked, but you never, ever say what you said to a paying customer. Ever. And if I never hear from you, that's fine. But you owe it to Curtis. You owe an apology to Curtis. He deserves an apology. So for anyone who stands up with me, I'm not asking you to forever cancel your subscription, just until Curtis gets an apology. That's all I want. Once Curtis gets his apology, I will gladly give you my $10 a month, because in all honesty, you're the only place where I can find all the stuff that reminds me of my childhood, that was taken from me, but also strengthened me. I want to believe that there are believers in your corporation. When I'm watching Tough Enough Season 2, when Miss Jackie and I forget the other girl's name, when they both won it, I remember watching the speech the trainer gave and hearing Eli's King of the Hill behind it, which is a great song. I remember listening to Audio Adrenaline through there as well. And the group Disciple did Hawkins and Ryder's intro theme. So obviously there's a tie to Christian music. And me being a former pastoral student, I want to believe in grace. I want to believe there is something here. And I want to tell you that while I'm angry and while I'm upset and while I'm taking the measures I'm taking, I can forgive it all. I love you guys. I love everything about WWE. I loved everything about WCW. I love what you guys do. I love that you guys inspire people and you give people hope. I love that. I'm not saying you guys are bad people. I'm just saying that someone made a mistake. And the right thing to do is correct it. It's not if you make mistakes in life that makes you who you are. It's what you do after that mistake that makes you who you are. I look forward to giving my money again, just as soon as Curtis gets his apology. You can reach me 319-472-3694 or at shrekhot1@yahoo.com. I will give you his supervisor's contact information with gladness. Thank you.